So, we're here with a Bloody Sunday March, where the crowd gathered, and the geography and the landscape around here has changed a lot, but in many ways it's still the same because we have a park here, but it would have been an old-fashioned park with an old-fashioned roundabout. So we've the roundabout here, things turning in circles. And it would have been a day, 30th of January 1972, would have been just very much like it is here today, dry, which also helps for getting a crowd out for a demonstration, a march, and a jovial atmosphere, a carnival atmosphere, and lots of young people all dressed up, and it was a Sunday, so a lot of people with their shirts and ties on and had their Sunday dinner and out to protest against internment. Go and make a statement that it was wrong to be taking people without charge, without any trial, denying them their basic civil rights, and putting you into an internment camp, like a prisoner of war camp. People says caged in like an animal, etc., etc., saying it was wrong. Civil Rights Association organised the march gathering here. The noise and the hum of the crowd and bouts of singing, and then buses pulling up, cars pulling up, people unfurling their banners and all ready to head off in the procession up here down the town. And as Emma McCann recently says, that, you know, the sound of the stomping feet, the marching, changed things politically and that, more so than gunfire. And as they marched up here and set off on the journey, clapping hands and singing, "We shall overcome," you know. And as it would go up here and start descending down southway, but when they set off here that day, I mean, nobody was expecting to happen what happened. I mean, if only they'd known. I left my grandchild at school this morning, and she's 7, going on 8. And I just thought back at 50 years ago on the 30th of January 1972. I was 7 going on 8. So it's 50 years on, a different generation. And in a few weeks' time, it's going to be the 50th anniversary of one of the most infamous atrocities, massacres took place in the streets here, right here where we're standing. Here's where the shooting began. It's because the crowd and the march, the anti-internment march, was coming down from Craigan. And as it passed through the Brandywell on the bog side, it was gathering momentum. And there was a louder stamp of feet and more people and singing "We shall overcome." And they'd already encountered the British Army up here at the cathedral, but it was ordinary British troops from the regiment was stationed locally, and they encountered British troops up here at the women baths too, but the Stewards managed to direct them down here. So the first shots fired that day would have been over around here. There was Stevenson's bakery, and on the roof of the bakery was paratroopers. And when they seen the paratroopers, they started stoning them. And the paratroopers opened fire with live rounds, and they shot 2 people. I think it was Bubbles Donaghy and John Johnson. So I think then it dawned on people that this was serious. There was a bad situation developing. Over towards here, the church, where the paratroopers, one of the companies of paratroopers were there waiting to launch their operation. There was more of them down here, so the crowd then proceeded on down. And the stewards and the lorry, which was leading the way, proceeded over Roswell Street. They were Lord Brockway and Fenway were going to give the speeches. But as usual, the young raiders, they made their way down the barricade. And that's where all hell had let loose then, with the usual throwing of stones, CS gas getting fired, rubber bullets. I mean, it's famous. You can see the guys coming out with the big sheets of tin, and there's dye came and gets spread out. And so if we go down to the barricade where it was there, we'll talk more about it. So over towards here with the post office would have been wide open ground here. CS gas flying, rioting, more rioting down here. And remember, the vast majority of the marchers have made their way across there to Free Derry Corner. So, the young rioters and that's approaching here. That's a crack most. And main barrier to try and prevent them. The march on the original day of Bloody Sunday would have been just across here. So there's famous footage there, the rioters coming out of here. And they had big sheets of tin. And they were attacking it and they brought up a purple dye water cannon and there was rubber bullets flying and spittles flying and it was very vicious like, but it was nothing out of the ordinary compared to what was happening on a weekly, daily basis then. So here was the barrier, and then when the decision was made, then they launched the paras on. You can see the famous footage of the general in charge of the whole British Army saying go on the paras and stomping the ground and sort of like go on and get them. And they come on here, and they come on here on foot, and they start heading up there, and everybody starts scattering. But the boys are coming on from up here, but they're coming on vehicles, and there's just like a pincer movement. It's like a military pincer movement, and then when it all happened, so they had intended to get peacefully up there, and Frank Lagan, the RUC inspector, had recommended that they be allowed to go through to the Guildhall, take as many photographs as you can, identify people and prosecute later. But it wasn't to be that day. The military seemed to be in total control. So, if you have any military knowledge or any knowledge of gunfire and one thing or another, this here's a wee small side street and the famous footages of the paras here. Now what you have to understand is over here was the Roswell Flats, which they thought you would probably think would be a strategic area for snipers or something, whatever that. So they're all here. You see the famous footage of the paras standing here. And then you see the body. My own cousin Jackie Dudley getting carried over here, and they carry him up there. Very brave people went out there under fire. A lot of heroics that day. All the heroics I would say was from the civilians. And started shooting here, and at the same time the other paratroopers were moving on up here on this open ground, but they were moving on like an anti-tank platoon, you know, disembarking from armoured personnel carriers and things like that. But there was actually hand-to-hand fighting with paratroopers here and battens getting, and then they started opening fire. And within a short space of time there was 13 people dead, 28 injured, whatever. It was a killing zone all around here, mostly on up here.
Father, how many dead have you seen in the Bogside?
Appearing to be dead. There are the 3 in that Saracen car. There are 2 men lying at the end of this block of flats. There's another man at least very close to being dead. There are 2 others up there. I'm told that there are some more in these flats here that I haven't seen yet. I would say there are probably about 4 dead at this moment. I don't know what those are doing, whether they're alive or dead, but they seem to be very dead, and they're thrown in as if they were dead meat.
So when the paratroopers entered in their vehicles and started disembarking off them and jumping out, they started going on the way they were trained. It was as if they were going on the action against Russian special forces or something, or else they were going to encounter the Green Berets. It was free Derry over there. So they took up positions here at these walls and started firing up the barricades. And they fired a rubber bullet up here at this window. And that window was the flat of Sergeant Patrick Smith, my sister-in-law's father, one of the men that was at Dunkirk. And so they were firing here up, and I think they killed John Kelly and Michael McDade and that. Up here, Jackie Dudley was killed in the courtyard, Patrick Dudley and Barney McGuigan up here. But what happened is then a platoon of them, or a section or a squad of them, moved on here to Glenfarra Park. Nothing much has changed here on Glenfarra Park, apart from the new museum. It's much the same as it was then. So this was a serious killing zone here. This is where a lot happened. My grandfather, Ed Houston, lived in that flat there, and he was another World War II veteran, and he actually heard the gunshots that killed his grandson. Jackie Dudley, and Jackie Dudley's father was another World War II veteran, but the paras came in here, some of them shooting from the hip, cowboy style, bang bang, Knights of Malta, everybody running around. This was, you can only imagine the terror on the people. And Jim Ray was killed up here, and they went over and finished them off, and others shot that back. Good friend of mine, John O'Kane, was along with his brother-in-law, McKinney. And he stuck his arms up over here, and the bullet actually went through there and out there, and nobody was spared. It seems they were all having a good wee laugh and giggle about it and all. And Peter Taylor, when he came over for the Sunday Times after it, interviewed a Welshman that had served 22 years in the British Army and witnessed it all up here from his back windows and his front windows, and was able to tell him, even though he was 22 years in the British Army, that what I witnessed that day was a massacre. So if we come over here, we can actually see some of the bullet strikes that are still here. So, we've still got some original bullet strikes. John O'Kane's telling you him and his brother-in-law were here. They were shot, and a lot of the injured then were taken over. This would have been opened up, taken through the room in Rogan's house. Now we have the museum in here recording it all. We were youngsters, we used to come down here and used to, it was like revisiting the battle scene, sticking your fingers on these holes and all, you know, relating stories about what had happened. So, and here's a scene of slaughter. They were shooting rings around them, shooting from the hip, gas masks on, as if it was a war killing zone. And then over here's the Roswell Flats. So, it's well hard to describe the geography of it, but the Roswell Flats would be here. That row of houses is there. And a lot of people were trying to get under the flats for safety. So the paratroopers were here. And if you remember, the barricades are here and there. And that's free Derry over there where they didn't enter. It was like an IRA control zone, so they were fearful entering there, whatever. And they stood here then and they shot Patrick Doherty over here crawling, and they shot Barney McGuigan. So they had him out with a white handkerchief. My mother always says he was one of the most civil human beings you'll ever meet in your life. And they shot Hugh Gilmore as he was trying to get on the safety of the Roswell Flats. John Kelly. One of the great acts of heroism that day was from Knights of Malta girl. Don't think she ever gets the credit she deserves, running here to try and help people. And then you had the man from Craigan crawled out under fire to try and help Patrick Doherty. Barney McGuigan came out waving the white handkerchief. They didn't know what they were dealing with then. These boys were standing here, they were just firing. Someone fired 20 shots or something up at a window up here on the flats. And so as you can see, most of the people were over here. They were lying on under the platform that was supposed to have the speakers that day. And well, anyway, it all ended as quick as what it began. And it was a really sad sight, the human bodies here. Ordinary civilians, people getting thrown in like lumps of meat on the back of armoured cars, pigs with highly trained professional paratroopers. And another great act of heroism here was Mr. Nash going out under fire because they try and help his son. So we've now got the monument over here. Bridget Bond had the great honour of unveiling it. In 1974 it was unveiled. So this was the Rossville Flats on here. So as you can see from the geography of the area, there was always accusations that the British Army and the walls were firing down that day. So you can see the monument's got the Northern Ireland Civil Rights Association. It was unveiled by Bridget Bond, a great woman of the people. Don't think she ever gets the credit she deserves anyway, but you can see, look, 17 years old, 17 years old, 17 years old, 17 years old. We're just boys, and we interesting story. I like to tell members of the Protestant Unionist Loyalist community when they come down here that John Young here, the last name of those who died on the day, because John Johnston died afterwards. But John Young, the last name on that. If you go up to the War Memorial on the Diamond, the last name on that is his grandfather, Tommy Young, which is a thing. So, it's unbelievable the many visitors still come here, and 50 years after, it still brings people to tears to think about it. I was only a young boy then, but I'll tell you, there's only one thing I can remember about then, and that was the silence. There was this wild silence for days, you know. It's unbelievable. You can't put it into words. It's just some kind of, I think it's a stunned silence or something. These houses up here where the cars are parked and these little beautiful trees are now, that would be houses. Rogan's house and that were a lot of the injured and that were taken in, and they were tended to be doctors who immediately ascertained that the wounds were so severe that first aid was no good. They had to be got to hospital for surgery, and they zoomed off in their cars to try and get to Hilton and Gilvin. Of course, the ambulances started arriving then, and people were trying to comprehend what happened. I was actually up in my own house because my mother left me behind, and a man called Patsy Heffron called at the door to say that you heard Jackie had been injured or killed, because he was a boxer and Patsy was in charge of the boxers. I just remember the darkness and the silence, and you just knew something was happening, because there was a neighbour who'd never set foot in our house, and I'd actually broke his window one time with my ball, and I was frightened because he actually came in to talk to my father, and I thought, there's something really seriously wrong when this man is in our house standing talking. So here's Free Derry Corner. This is where they actually assembled then, once they realised that they weren't getting in the Guildhall Square. But not how much happened here other than people diving for cover and scattering and talking to all the relatives and friends that were actually there on the day. They were glad that they'd followed the lorry and had come over here because they'd got out of the way. My mother-in-law, Margaret Patterson, and her husband Alan, they had just had a baby, and she was a New Year's baby in 1972, and they were shot at over there. They give evidence to They give evidence to the Bloody Sunday inquiry. But for the grace of God, it could have been anybody. I think that's the whole thing about Bloody Sunday. It could have been anybody. So we've talked about the people. You know, they were human beings. Like a lot of people lost their lives in the conflict. There's a man takes tours around here, Bogside Tours, excellent tour it is. He lost his father that day, and he'll tell you that the provisional IRA were very militant, had 30 members or something like that before Bloody Sunday. And after Bloody Sunday, it went up into the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. So if anybody's here is not actually from the city or from, you can see we still have heavily armour plated police Land Rovers. So, we've talked a lot about what happened that day and how it happened, and who did it, and inquiries and the hurt, and the anguish and the pain. These are the people here. I mean, they've become ingrained into the psyche of the vast majority of nationalist people and Catholic people in Derry. And John Michael Kelly was in the Brevard, Jim Ray. And Ashes lived behind us. Willie McKinney worked in the Journal office. Cousin Jackie Dolly, talented boxer. I think he was witnessing Pippers coming back to join the Merchant Navy like his father. Barney McGuigan, his mother always says a big civil human being. John Young. I mean, they're all forever ingrained in the minds of people. So paratroopers really didn't engage any further than in Glenfarra Park. Remember, we were there and it was in the killing zone on there. So they didn't come out here, as far as I know anyway. So when they got the wounded and the dead, they got them in here and they got them in the houses here. And they were able to try and get first aid them. A lot of people done a lot of brave things. It's all blocked off here now, it's all gated off because of antisocial behaviour, but it was all open then. And you could have just came through there, that would have been a gap into Glenfarra Park, so the paras would have been in there. If their men were killed in there, they had been lucky enough to get in out here and that there. I mean, it's all what ifs, isn't it? But that would have been open there, and that would be where Mr. McKinney put his arms up in that, and where Jim all in there. So you can only imagine what the sounds were like, and the smells of cordite and gunfire and CS gas and that. I mean, you can only imagine it. You can't get that in a film. But so that's the back of Glenfarra Park here. So the people on here were, my granddad was telling me, they were all lying on the ground. Some of them were brave enough to peek outside, out their windows. And I think it came out in an inquiry that a brave woman got up there hanging, seen the paras coming through, and one of the guys, she motioned them, they let on and play dead. You know, if they had moved, they might have finished them off. So a lot of people find it remarkable that it happened in such a small space. You know, the death zone, the killing zone was all within sight and sound of one another. Just on there and over towards the flats. hard to imagine 50 years have passed. So, whenever it was all over, they'd done their killing, they'd thrown bodies into the backs of things, they got their orders then, and they came back out, and away they went, and they arrested lots of people, and there's some famous footage of them coming down here, Kells Walk. A woman in amongst them, I think it's Mrs. O'Brien, and you can see Barry Liddy, he was a Korean veteran and all, with their hands in her head, Father Bradley, all getting marched over here to be processed and arrested and taken down to the camp. And as far as we can get from the Savile inquiry, that there was actually a lot of hostility amongst the resident soldiers, British troops that were stationed here, because they thought the Paras were just going to walk off and they were going to be left holding the baby, and they were going to get the killings, which actually proved very prophetic, because that's actually what did happen. So it shows them coming down Kells Walk, they're all getting marched down under, and the Paras aren't taking no prisoners, they're beating people on the sides, hitting them with their batons and that, and clubbing them over the head, and getting forced frog marched over here, and women, anybody lined up against the wire and on the trucks and all, and down, and away they went. And I think there was a famous panorama programme then afterwards where they were interviewed up at Palace Barracks, and they were really elated that they'd done a great job down here. And it's mad to think that later on that year in September, they went up and they were let loose on the Shankill Road, and the UDA wanted rid of them, campaigned to get rid of the Paras off the Shankill Road. They actually shot a man that put a drink on him one night, standing on the road, and somebody else, they shot another man dead. And Unionist friends tell me to this day you'll never see a banner on the Shankill Road supporting Soldier F or the Paras, because they got to fill it. And on the UDA report for that September on the Shankill Road, after they killed and injured the people up on the Shankill Road, they took eyewitness statements, and it seems that after they killed the men on the Shankill Road during the day, they went round with a 10-hour speaker later on that night in their jeeps, saying that what we'd done to your men that day, we're going to do to your women tonight. The drama, the heartache, the pain all went into who was dead. There was that many rumours running about, and phones were few and far between. I think there was only about 6 phones on the whole of the Craigan estate. I know when my mother and Emmons were running around trying to find out about the casualties and find out if young Jackie was on, they actually had to go to the Watchman's site hut, who had a telephone in the St Mary's Community Centre. And then the families, if you've seen the films and that, when they reached the hospital, and the hospital wasn't designed to cope with casualties and such it was like something from a war scene. And then the word started getting through back to the community, who was dead, the rumours and that. And I think a lot of people over the years they always mention that silence. There's the stunned silence, that there was that shock. So here's St Mary's, Bloody Sunday, 50 years. If any have seen the family, I've seen the film. It was actually filmed down here, and they used Mickey Bradley from the Undertones, the pop group's house here. And you can see it, but this is the original place. You'd seen people standing all along the walls, thousands, all up there for the coffins all arriving for the mass celebrated by the bishop on here. I can't remember being at the funerals, but I remember us being up the night before to see the coffins in the chapel. And the one thing I do remember is the smell of the candles and the silence. And young boys around our age and girls are always, when we've talked over the years, I've also said as well, there was a whole lot of overzealous civil rights stewards that were telling us they get lost and all them because we were young people, instead of saying this, come on in, and welcoming us. We always remember that. Because I mean, we actually went up to the wake house with my cousin and my boy outside. I had to go and see my mommy, as you do when you're that age. And I'm telling me to get lost and all that there. So here, Craigan Chapel. Nobody forget to see the sobs and the tears and the silence and the coffins coming up here one after the other. tricolours over them, no guards on her, no guns or no firing volleys or nothing, just people sobbing, ordinary people, civilians. So, coming up on 50 years ago, this was packed with sobbing families, heartache, tears, sniffle, stunned silence. I remember his family telling me that they actually still retained him. You had to get tickets for the family allowed so many members, and you had dignitaries up the front from the Irish government and church leaders and that, visitors from over the world. More than anything, it was a community and grief and mourning. Chapel's a lot changed now. It's a lot changed for the better, but back then there would have been a big marble. There was a marble surround around the altar, and used to go up to get communion and kneel at the altar, so the coffins were behind it. Well, anyway, there was an idea that it would be hugely symbolic if they were to bury the 13 victims on the who were killed on the day in a row. You know, symbolic to the world and that. But Jackie Duddy, his mammy, my Aunt Maureen, had died in 1968, and Bishop Daly, Father Daly then, had said that his last words were for his mammy. And so the family were saying it's only proper. They said, look, he's going to be buried in his mammy. So he has buried with his mammy. And all their families did the same, buried in with their loved ones and that. But there was 5 of the victims buried in a row, which we'll go to. So maybe we'll have a wee look at Jackie's first and that. So here's the resting place of young boy Jackie Duddy, killed on Sunday, 3rd of January 1972, aged 17 years of age. His dear daddy, his family grave and his mammy. His mammy died aged 44, Aunt Maureen. I'm just looking there, look, she died 4 days after the 5th of October, the original Civil Rights March. And there, young Jackie was killed in a Civil Rights March. So for people from the Protestant Unionist community and things like that, or people in England and all about, I mean, as you see, there's no died for Ireland, opening the irons, anything like that. He was just a young, innocent boy. And here now then, we have Kevin McElhenney, Michael Kelly, 17 years old, Hugh Gilmore, 17 years old, Patrick Doherty, and Willie Nash. So that's the five the Bloody Sunday plot. And as you can see, you have no flagpoles, no ogling irons, no all this and that there, just innocent people killed. And you do the Bloody Sunday Museum, which I would highly recommend to anybody. It's a great tour and a great visit. John Kelly. He'll probably tell you about his brother. He'll tell you about his brother Michael, not, but he'll tell you about the long-term effects it had on a lot of people. And Mrs. Kelly, whenever she wasn't feeling well, they knew to come in, they would find her here at Michael's grave, crying and sobbing for him. So these are all neighbours of mine, and Ashes from Dunree, and Kelly's from down Dunmore, etc., etc. So. I take tours around here for some people, education. We bring the young people over, and the most continuous bit of feedback we seem to always get is that a lot of people always say, "What was it all for?" You know, when they go around all the graves and that thing and all. So anyway, these people are gone, but they're not forgotten. It's been 50 years, and still remembered, and it's going to be a sombre occasion, and so sad. Like as I was saying earlier, I left my child today, my grandchild at school today, and she's the same age now as I was on 30th of January 1972, and I hope to God he never has to experience or witness any of this year that we had. So, thank you very much. Goodbye.
Jackie, I remember your face from a far distant place. Yes, I do. Jackie, you were an innocent boy. Why did they destroy your future road to you? You came from a home of 9 sisters and 5 brothers. Up in the Craigan, you were my cousin. You worked with me brother Dustin, named after me father, down in springtime, tending looms. Jackie, you were just 17 when they shattered your dreams, and we never got over it. Jackie.